All right. Look at us, Liz. We're on. We're live. We're chatting with each other and we're chatting with people coming in.
Just hanging out.
Yeah.
What a fun morning.
Yeah. Well, welcome everybody. I was going to say it's 10:59 Eastern, but it's now 11 o'clock and I see participants are coming in. I love it when you see that number just kind of keeps changing and going up. And so you get to welcome everybody. Liz, how are you today? How's
I'm
Reno?
fabulous. It's very gray today, but it's gray and cold, which I guess is what it's supposed to be.
It is almost the middle of December. So here we go. All right, Bob Britton, welcome. Aloha. There you go. Bob always starts his comments with aloha. Liz, how long did you live in Hawaii?
14
Excuse
years.
me. Hawaii.
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 I lived there 14 years. I raised my daughter there.
Very cool. Very
So
cool.
aloha, everyone.
Aloha, everyone. And yeah, look at everybody coming in. Kim, good to see you. He's in BC. There it is, Vancouver. And Natalie from Reno. Look at that. Reem with another aloha. All right. Well, hey, we're 11:01 and I love to use everybody's time well. So let's jump into this. Liz, you ready? Do we need to like stretch, work, get
Do
warmed
our
up?
superhero pose.
There you go. Perfect. Okay. So we are going to get started. You all have already figured out the chat. Good for you. You've done this once or twice. Use the chat to ask questions. Noor, who is awesome, she's on the back end and keeping an eye on that so we can, we'll try to answer questions throughout, but definitely at the end, we'll stop and answer any questions you want. We're shooting for about 30 minutes, everybody, with a little bit of Q&A. I think Liz and I are the same. We're going to stay as long as you have questions.
Yeah.
But let's get started on this inaugural, kickoff to our new Big Dog series. Did you know that you were the kickoff for the Big Dog series, Liz?
I didn't even know I was a big dog. So there you go.
You are a big
Until you
dog.
told me the other day.
You are a big dog. So the Big Dog series, look, this is Fist Bump. We want to give back to the industry. And so the big dogs like Liz, her sister Alice was a guest on our show a few months ago. We had Mark Hunter, and Mark Hunter and I did a webinar about a month or so ago. But I just realized, like, man, it's all about my friends who are big dogs, who I've gotten to know over the years, who are willing to come on to my show, Mastering Modern Selling. And by the way, I have a new show coming out in January. I'm not going to tell you what it's called yet, but I have another show that I'm going to kick off in January. But the big dogs who are willing to come on and be a guest on the show, and they have something a little bit more tactical and practical to educate our community, then we invite them to come on to the Big Dog series and do that in a webinar. So today, Liz is going to talk about taking the chaos out of sales, and she's going to share her sales operating system. And Liz, before you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, I love that your framework has the acronym SOS, because I think so many sales leaders right now need to send out that SOS. I'm hearing the police. I'm sending out an SOS. Yeah, I can't sing. Sorry, everybody. Like the number of participants just dropped a lot because of my singing.
I believe it. We won't do it again. I promise. We won't do it again.
So everybody, this is Liz Heiman. And Liz, please share with everybody a little bit about you and your experience, your history as a big dog.
It's really interesting because until very recently, I always thought, I don't know how I got into this world of sales. I don't really have any sales experience. I just sort of grew up in the world of sales. And I was chatting with somebody and we were talking about my history. And my first sales job was at like a flea market, selling bras of all things, my little 14-year-old self. And, I have been selling ever since, but I never think about it. My first job in college was getting people to give money to the university, right? So
that was my first job too in college.
And cold call, right? So for the longest time, I was like, I've never cold called. But really, when I sat down and looked at my life, I'm like, I have been selling my whole life. And I think a lot of people have been involved in sales even before they thought about it as sales. So, and I did literally grow up in sales. My dad wrote a book called Strategic Selling. And so this idea of,
You never name drop your dad. Come on, tell everybody who your dad is, because you have been talking about sales around the dinner table your whole life.
I have been. My dad is Steve Heiman, and he and Bob Miller wrote a book called Strategic Selling, which for a very long time was considered the sales Bible. And a lot of the stuff that people are teaching now comes out of that tradition, this tradition that there's a process around sale and it's sales, and it's really framed the way I think about sales, right? So there's a couple of things that come out of that tradition. One is that sales are win-win. It is not good selling if you're manipulating people. It is not good selling if you're coercing people or making them feel dumb, right? Good selling is making people feel good and confident and comfortable to make a good buying decision. So that framework is part of what I do and what I learned. And I didn't know people did something different until I began to experience it. And the second thing is that there's process. If you want to be effective, you create a process that's repeatable and manageable, and then you can increase your sales. But if you're chaotic and if it's just haphazard, you're not likely to be very effective. So that's kind of what I bring out of that tradition. And then I did crazy things like went and got my degrees in international political economy and methodology, which, and then I ended up back here in the world of sales, using all of that to help people really build effective sales organizations.
And hence, we're going to talk about the chaos in sales and how to get rid of chaos in your sales processes today. Sound about right?
That's what we're going to do.
Awesome. Okay. So everybody, before we get started, if I don't tell you a little bit about Fist Bump, my team smacks me around because I didn't take the opportunity. So welcome to the Big Dog series. I'm Brandon Lee. I am the founder of Fist Bump. And what we do is we help leaders get connected, become relevant, credible, and part of their industry so that people in their industry start saying, oh my gosh, I see you everywhere and I feel like I already know you, as a way to help them create more conversations for themselves and their sales teams. If any of that gets exciting for you, then, give us a call, shoot us an email, jump on LinkedIn and say, hey, that was kind of interesting. Let's talk. And we'll be glad to see if we can help you. And I talk about this with my team all the time. We want to help. That's why we do this Big Dog webinar series. And even if we as Fist Bump are not the right answer for you, we are going to do everything we can to help you find the right answer. And that is why Liz is here today to talk about the chaos in sales. So Liz.
Brandon, wait, before we do that, I just have to say one thing. And
Okay.
that if you do not understand, if you're sitting here watching and you're going, I don't understand, why do I need to have credibility? Why do I need to build a reputation? I'm telling you right now that with the use of AI and we've already had too much email, we've already had too much content and too much noise, and it's only getting worse. So unless you are credible, you will not be heard. People will not listen to you. And so what Brandon's talking about is like life-changing stuff for companies and sellers.
Yeah, that relevance and credible is really, really the challenge, and being able to rise above the noise. And if we thought we had noise 2 years ago, with AI over the last, what has been really 14, 15 months that ChatGPT made this big splash, the noise is getting louder. And the challenge isn't to go be louder. The challenge is, how do I go be relevant? And so thank you for that. Well, Liz, I keep having conversations with leaders who are struggling, and they don't necessarily use the word chaos in their sales organization, but everything they say leads to it's chaotic, it's unmanageable, and the big thing is it's totally unpredictable. So tell us what's happening out there.
Well, so here's the thing, and I actually do hear people say the word chaos. And what's really interesting is when I started using the word chaos, when I'm talking to CEOs, suddenly their eyes would like light up and they'd be like, that's it. It's chaos, right? So why is it chaos, or why does it feel like chaos? Here are the kinds of things that CEOs are hearing, right? or I'm hearing from CEOs both. One is they're having conversations with their salespeople. How's it going? Are we going to get that deal? And they get really vague answers. Oh yeah, they love us. It's going to be great. They're going to close. It's going to be fabulous. And there's nothing that is clear or makes me feel confident about, yeah, they love us. It's going to be great. You know, how the conversation go? It was fabulous. They loved us.
Well, it's always really super confident until it's just dead.
And then I don't have any
confident.
idea what happened. I thought we were in. They told us, my guy told us it was us, right? So how do you manage that? The other kinds of things is when I talk to CEOs, they go, yeah, I pull up the CRM. It's worthless. It's not up to date. Everything is just wherever, just stuck wherever. Stuff is missing. There's no next actions. There's no history. It's just noise. And that's impossible to manage. You can't manage noise. You can't manage missing information. You know, and one of the big problems is that the people who are running sales organizations, especially like in mid-sized companies where it's the CEO, they don't really know what the sales process is. They did it, but they can't really verbalize what it is, what they did, what somebody else should be doing. And they sure don't have any idea how to manage it. They're doing their best. They're managing their sales team, kind of like they're managing everybody else, but without the specifics, right? Everywhere else you have really clear KPIs and measurements and clarity and who ordered what and what part of the system, you know. In sales, it's just sort of messy.
Yeah. And when I hear the story, and I've experienced, is the company starts and it's usually leader-led sales, and then maybe they bring somebody alongside them at some point and they train them or coach them or they mimic what the leader does, and then they take over and they start leading more of sales. And they kind of do things from an innate nature. They become really good at it, but they have systems that are kind of in their head, but it's never written down. And then they start hiring more salespeople and just assume everybody's going to figure it out by osmosis. And they don't. And you end up wasting a lot of money on salespeople who don't produce. And they're not, to be fair to them, they just were never equipped to produce. Does that sound like something you hear a lot as well?
They were never equipped to produce, and they may not have hired the right people for the job that they have. So there's this myth, sales is sales is sales. Hire a good salesperson and they will be good. But that's not true. If I hire a good salesperson who is really effective in an environment that had a lot of support and I have a startup, that person's not going to be effective in an environment with no support. If I hire somebody who's really good at closing deals, but I need somebody to go get deals, they're not going to be good. So we got to hire the right people doing the right thing. And yeah, we don't do a good job of that.
And you provided a couple of these slides that I think are just so relevant and should make any of us go, this is a problem. Yeah, less than 45% of sellers hit quota. Like that just sounds asinine to me.
Right? So either you picked a ridiculous quota they can't hit, and why did you do that? Or you picked people who aren't equipped to hit, they don't have the skills to do that. Or you're doing something that's getting in the way of them selling. So yeah, why would you hire people that aren't going to hit your quotas? Why is that acceptable?
Right. And then confidence is low, as you said before.
Yeah. If the head of sales, if the vice president of sales is unsure of the projections, then how can you as the CEO be sure of the projections, and how can you make decisions if you don't know what's going to happen?
This next stat, when you showed it to me on our, prep calls, this one got me. At first I looked at it and I'm setting it up for everybody, like make you wait a little bit. When I first looked at it, I'm like, oh, okay. But then you gave a very specific example that made me go, oh my gosh, that's a problem. Do you remember how you explained it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to do that again? Because 80% of forecasts are off by 25% or more.
Of the companies in the United States. So what does that mean? That means if you have a $40 million company, you don't know whether you're going to make $50 million or $30 million.
See, when you said that the first time, like literally I read that, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I've heard this kind of data before, but when you put it that way, I went, oh my gosh, that would stress me out as a
So as a
CEO.
CEO, how do you hire? How do you purchase? How do you
How do
make
you
decisions?
forecast? How do you go to sleep? How do you let your brain relax?
I don't know, but this is why it feels like chaos, because the chaos that the sales team is creating by not hitting their numbers. If you oversell, everybody thinks that's a problem I want to have. Really? Really? Do you want to have 25% of your customers that you can't service because you haven't staffed up or purchased to support that? We need to know what's coming within a much narrower margin than 25%. We need to have the ability to project, and if you can't, then your whole company is chaos. Suddenly people are selling stuff you didn't think they were going to sell, so now your whole production line, your procurement team, your support team is running like crazy. So you've created chaos, or you're laying people off. You've got, this is what chaos is about.
I had a sales leader who I know who has actually recently left his role because in the last, I can't remember the exact timelines, it was 2 or 3 years. It was, the model said, we're going to go hire 25 salespeople and they're going to do this many calls, da, 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 da. And they thought they had a system. And then 9 months later, they let 23 of them go, laid them off. And then they did it again the next year. Oh, no, 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 we got it. And then they laid them off. And they were going into a third round of doing the exact same chaotic thing that wasn't going to work because they didn't have a better system. And that's when he said, I'm out. I got to go somewhere that we're going to make more better decisions.
Yeah, and you also have to have patience.
Yeah.
So you don't open up the phone, open up the spigot and sales happen. If you've got a business to business sale, it's complex, it's expensive, it's got a long sales cycle. You may have 2 years between the time that you hire that team and get them going until you see the outcome. So if you don't have the runway to do it, you're going to panic and you're going to throw all that work away.
Yeah. So we really, I think we've done a pretty good job of letting everybody know, hey, it's kind of chaotic. We have options. We either plug our ears and close our eyes and hope it goes away. The magic wand, like somehow fairy godmother is going to come along and make it magically go away, or we're going to do something about it. And I know you talk about, you use this term random acts of.
Right. So some people talk about random acts of social, but sales is sort of like that, random acts of sales. I'll just pick up the phone arbitrarily and start calling arbitrary people. One of my clients said, I just tell my guys, pick a direction and go that way and knock on doors. Right. And it's better than nothing, but it isn't systematic. It isn't planned. It isn't strategic. You haven't thought about what you want to accomplish and who you want to accomplish it with. So you can do a ton of work and get very little result, or you can do less work and get better results. And the idea is to really have a strategy around what you want to accomplish.
So you're going to talk today about less work, better results, because we're going to take it from chaos to success. So let's get started in it, shall we? Anything else you want to add for everybody to set this up, or we jump right into it?
Let's just jump right in. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So if we are going to have success, we have to have two things. One is we have to have strategy, and the others we have to have clarity, and we have to have visibility. These are the two things, and you guys can all understand that. Being really clear about what we're trying to accomplish and being able to see whether or not we're doing this. Clarity and I lost my words. But so let's go back to the clarity.
You'll get clarity on what you were trying to say here.
I get clarity on what I'm trying to say. I do this at least once a discussion where I just completely lose track of what I'm saying.
We're all friends. We're all family. It's all good. we're just having a chat.
It's all right. So sales strategy, the idea of activity without strategy is that it's chaos, right? If everybody's running around doing something, everybody looks really busy. Are you busy? Are you busy? I'm so busy. I'm so busy. Did you hit your numbers? No, because I've been so busy. What we want to start with is a strategy. And when I talk about strategy, I'm talking like a whole basket, a whole bucket of things that we're actually talking about that are not just, hey, do you have a vision, value, and which are really important. You've got to have those things if you want your sales team to understand who you are and what you're doing and why. But there's a whole bunch more strategy.
Can I ask a question? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. What about companies who, I always say, I like the term, like they've been successful despite themselves. Like they're doing okay. They're hitting some numbers. It may not be the numbers they want. Like what about folks like that are going, yeah, we don't have a great system, but we're fine. What do you say to that?
Well, there's a couple of things. One is a lot of the companies that have been just fine are not fine anymore. And those are the people who I'm talking to a lot. Like,
Oh,
always
okay.
just worked. It's not working anymore. What we've always done is not working anymore. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, sure, that's fine if you're accomplishing what you want to, but how are you going to scale that? Because you can't scale chaos.
Or how do you sell it if you eventually want to sell it?
You can't sell it because it's chaos. You can't prove how you're hitting the numbers that you're hitting or what it should look like. So sure, if you're happy with chaos, then just go right ahead. But if you're sitting here talking to us, you're probably not happy with chaos. And so we now need to start with strategy. What is it you're really trying to accomplish and why and how? And once you begin to understand those things, you can begin to build around that.
What's the foundation of that? How do we start? If because I could see we have, you have this situation, you have a company, they're 25 years old, they've been doing this a while. It's worked good enough. They're happy. Maybe it's, for them, it's a bit of a lifestyle business. They're making the money they need to provide for their family. And then, as you just said, all of a sudden, over the last couple of years, it's not working, and they have that moment. Where do you start?
Well, you start with your go-to-market strategy, right? We tend to think, oh, this is what startups do. They create a go-to-market strategy. They figure out how they're going to sell and what they're going to do. But with older companies that are coming back at this from a new angle, they're really looking at their go-to-market strategy. Who are we selling to? How
Go
are
back to basics.
Go back to the basics. Who's our ideal customer? Is the person that we thought our ideal customer going to be our ideal customer going forward? Is our target market shifting or is it the same? And you want to get ahead of that. You don't want to wait until it's shifted and you were left behind. You want to be ahead of it. You want to look at, okay, we used to sell through distributors. Is that still working? Could we revive our distributor network or do we need to do something different? Oh, maybe we should be looking at online experience. Maybe we never had to do that before, but the world is changing. So we really are looking at how do we go to market? How do we interact with our client? How do they find us and how do they buy from us? So, and who do we want to be now? Who we wanted to be 25 years ago may not be who we want to be now going forward as we've matured.
Liz, I'm going to ask this question. I want to dumb it down even more because, I got a pretty thick skull and I'm not that smart. When we look at go-to-market strategy, we look at going to the foundation. You threw out a term, ideal customer profile. I think I've heard you throw out like vision, mission, values, getting back to our goals. You're saying things like we look at our distributor network and do we still want to be there? Like, go get down into the nitty-gritty. What do they really need to do at this? Because I can see this is where my brain's going. I can see oh yeah, let's go throw a couple hours in the boardroom and knock this thing out. But I don't. That's what you're saying. You're like, roll up the sleeves, get dirty, go wrestle with this stuff for a while, because there's a lot of history there that we've ignored that we have to take serious now.
Yes, you really, this is the time where you start challenging all of your assumptions. And it's one of the reasons that you bring in an outsider, because you have been speaking in an echo chamber. And now you need somebody to look inside and go, hang on a second. This is what you said. Is that what you meant? Is that how this really works now? Kinds of questions. So you start up and I almost, someday I want to create like a Sim City version of that vision. For those of you who are too young to know what SimCity is, you sort of build your city. And I kind of want to do that. What are you building? Are you building something that you want to sell to other people? Are you building something you want to create yourself? Are you building something that goes into somebody else's product? Like, what are you building? How do you want it to impact the world? Do you want to have thousands of people that work for you, or do you want to have 5? What is this vision about who you are and what you're changing and how you're doing it? And physically, what does that look like?
Right.
And then values, which I don't want to spend a lot of time with it, but values matter, because how you hire people, who you hire as your salespeople, who you hire as your leaders, who you hire as your workers, who you use as vendors, how you treat your vendors, how you treat your customers. All of those things should be driven by your values. So if you say you're a customer-driven company and you treat your customers poorly, then you're not really living up to your values. And if you hire if you're all about integrity, but you hire salespeople that lie and dissemble, and then you're not living up to your values. So those values need to be real and important and drive the way you do things.
And I'm gonna move us along, because I know you don't want to deep dive here, and I think we could spend like the next 5 hours talking about that vision.
Absolutely.
But what I hear you saying, and I agree with you. Like we're only a couple years into Fist Bump, and we're reviewing our vision, mission, values, and goals again now because of things that have pivoted a little bit. And it is one of those, for anybody that listens to me, one of the things I love to say: go slow to move fast. And this is one of those like hallmark: go slow, really do the work, because there's so many aha moments that come out when you take this work serious and you go, oh my gosh, no wonder or, oh, we'll be able to do so much better here now that, like, I think a lot of that comes through when you really do that work. And this is a plug for Liz, everybody. When you bring someone from the outside in, because a lot of us like, oh, I can do it. I could lead my team in doing it. And we probably can. But when you get that third party perspective, there's a lot of blind spots that you're just not seeing, that a third party who's done it for a lot of years, like Liz, are going to help you discover.
Yeah.
I mean, besides plugging you and giving you this big kudos, anything else you want to add to that before we move on?
No, but always, even if it's not a professional, bring somebody into the meeting who's not part of it, so they can go, what do you mean by that? What does that really,
Right.
what is that? Stop
Yeah,
speaking.
the third party person doesn't understand it, then your customers aren't going to understand it either.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. Cool. Liz, I'm sorry, I didn't click along. Like, I mean, you already talked about this quite a bit. It, like, sales is the black box, but is there anything here that you want to address, or can I move you into the visibility part?
Well, this is the visibility part, right? So let's start here, because what happens in sales is it's a sort of black box for most companies. So you throw stuff in the top of the funnel, you hope and pray something comes out the bottom. And for the leadership, they have no idea how the sausage is being made, if you will, right? So what's happening in there? And if we want to have control, if we want the chaos to go away, we need to have visibility. And the way you have visibility is you create processes, language, rules that everybody follows in order to have a discussion, in order to have visibility, in order to look at the CRM and go, I see what's coming and what's not coming, and I can make decisions and I can have conversations. So if you go to the next slide here.
Can you give us an example of what do you mean by that? What are processes and language and things like that? Do you want me to go to the next slide?
Yes. So this is my sales funnel vision, right? You have visibility into it as it goes. So you know what's happening at each stage. So the first thing is you come up with a common language for the sales process. We have prospecting, qualifying, solving, closing, or cultivating is one of the words I use. So we have that, and then we can begin to say what happens during each of these stages. And if one of the things that should be happening during the stages is I should be meeting multiple people from that company as a CEO, I can go, well, how many people have you talked to? When's the last time you talked to that buyer or that buyer? Or are you just relying on one person to guide you through this process. So we want to have coaches, but we don't want to have my guy selling, which is I just sell to one person and hope they're going to navigate me through this whole thing. So as we're going through and we're looking at the process, we can see where the holes are, where the problems are, and what conversations we need to be having. The other thing, and Brendan, this is where the process, when we're talking about a sales process, if we really think about that whole sales process and we think, okay, so I've got the stages, I've got the descriptions, I've got the rules to move from stage to stage. I've listed the activities that happen in each of those stages. I know what questions need to be answered in each of those stages. Now I can think about what tools do I need to do that job? What content, what technology, what, maybe I need graphics. What are the things that I need to do what I'm doing well? And that is when you have a process that everybody can see and understand. So now marketing understands the sales process, and guess what? They can help. They don't have to be, on the other side going, I wonder what they're doing over there in that black box.
Yeah. I want to reiterate some things for people, what I've heard you said, if you don't mind. What I like about it is you're saying for every stage, there's rules. None of us like rules, but what you're really saying is there's check boxes, there's tasks that we need to do in order to fulfill or complete that we did the necessary work at that stage before we move them to the next stage. That sun, I'm sure feels great on your face.
It's making me crazy. Can we hang on 1 second? It's absolutely making me nuts.
Oh, I love this. See, this is our Big Dog webinar series. It's just a bunch of friends hanging out, talking, solving problems.
Oh my
Like,
goodness. So when we started, it was so dark and somehow the sun came out. And I'm like, I can't get away from the sun that's in my eyes.
I was watching you. It's like you were doing this duck and cover, like you were in a boxing
Oh
match.
my goodness. Thank you. Thank you for letting me do that because it was making me crazy.
I'm sure the vitamin D was great, but squinting while you're talking with folks is probably not the most comfortable.
Yeah, it was so dark when we started. It's like, I can't believe how dark it is.
I know for everybody, when we got on about 10 minutes before, Liz got up and started turning more lights on because it was so dark in her room. And now I love it.
I'm like, sorry about that. All right. So
I think this is important because when you're going from a chaotic sales where it's just like instinctual, I've done this a long time, I just kind of do what I think I need to do. It's easy to forget things. It's easy to like, oh, I didn't include these 3 other people that are part of the buying group, whether it's a formal buying group or they're just informal influencers into the decision maker. Like all these tactics and strategies that we need to remember. I mean, come on, we forget. So we were talking about this rules, checklist, process. I did these things. Yes, now I can move them into the qualify stage. And these are the tactics. So you're just giving them a roadmap. And then it's a map that you can put up on the wall, so to speak, or put on screen, and everybody can look at it and go, we did a good job. We didn't do a good job. Let's go back and repeat. Like that's what I'm hearing you say. Is that accurate?
that's absolutely right. And people often say, oh, you're creating all this process, and so you're limiting my creativity. And my response to that is no, what I'm doing is putting things in place that enable you to do the things that are creative. Instead of having to be creative about what the sales process is, let's be creative about how we communicate. Let's be creative about who it is we're talking to. Let's use our creativity in the fun ways and let the system support our creativity. So I am not a big fan of having this is exactly what you need to say to this person. And when somebody says this, you have to say this. That is not creative. And that is not good sales. Because if I know what I'm going to say before somebody speaks, or the moment they say this, I'm supposed to say that. I'm not listening. I'm not hearing. I'm not understanding. They don't feel comfortable or confident with me because I'm not in the moment with them, which is where you need to be when you're selling. So I'm not saying create a process that's so rigid that there's no room for creativity, because that's a bad idea. But I'm saying, how much process do you need to eliminate the chaos?
Yeah, I kind of like it's like the sticky notes you put around to remind you to make sure you do things. Like, my office is in the basement and it's cold and I turn the heat on, but I have sticky notes on the door when I go up to remind me to turn the heat off. Like, did you do the task that you need to do? Because if not, I heat the basement all night long and I don't need to pay for that. Right. So it's a sticky note on each stage of going, did you do these things? Because we know if we hit all the check boxes, we have a higher probability of being successful. We can be more efficient and be more successful. And wow, look at that, how this scale came together. It reduces the chaos.
But I also want to say that while that is exactly right, the one thing that we try to do is force structure on our clients in a way that isn't comfortable for them. So for instance, I will not write a quote for you until all of these things have happened. But if my buyer's process is some low-level person was sent out to go gather information, and part of gathering information is getting some sort of a quote that gives us an idea of what this might actually cost and what would be involved in it. But I'm saying, well, you can't have that quote until I've talked to your CEO and until you've done this and done this. Well, now I'm making my sales process, I'm making them fit my sales process instead of making my sales process fit them. So they're asking, so we want to have rules around stages as opposed to rules around activities. So the stage is qualifying, and part of their qualifying process is to get a preliminary bid. Give them a preliminary bid, but recognize they're still in qualified, right? So this is making the rules to support the process.
Oh, that's really good. I think what you said there, for everybody to pause for a moment and get that clarity, because that is generally a big objection. And I think it's a convenient and easy objection to go, yeah, but what about, well, fine. Have a rule that you can carve out for that, but have a rule that makes sense. And I love what you said, because I would see a lot of people would go, oh, proposals out the door, we're in close stage, but you're not.
You're
You're
not.
still in qualify stage.
And most of the clients that I go in and look at their funnel, there's so much stuff in close because they sent a proposal, as if just because you sent a proposal, they're ready to make a decision.
Right.
You don't put them in close until they've said to you, yes, that's the version of the proposal that I want, and this is the timeline that I want to move forward.
Right.
Right.
And that's why this happens.
Yes, that is a big reason that happens.
Yeah. All right. So bring it all together, Liz. This has been excellent, by the way. I hope everybody you're listening. I've learned a lot from this as well. And I'm like checking through some things in my own head. So thank you for that. But bring this together, and everybody, if you have questions for Liz, now's a good time to go throw them in the chat. If you've had questions already, I'll go back through them and pull them up as well for Liz. But Liz, bring this all together for everybody. Let's wrap it up for them.
Let's wrap it up. So if you have chaos, if you have a lot of activity without strategy, what you have is chaos. So what we want to do is put the things in place that will bring down the level of chaos. So we want to have strategy, we want to have systems, and we want to have a process for managing. Most people do not have any idea how to manage a salesperson. So we need to create a process for managing the salesperson. We need a process and a system that's driven by strategy. And then you have predictable revenue, manageable sales, and sustainable growth, which is what we all really want.
You know what? Predictable revenue and manageable sales and sustainable growth sounds like a dream these days.
Yeah. And I will say, which I didn't say earlier, is there's one caveat. And the caveat is we don't know what the economy is going to be. So we need to be able to be flexible. But you're not going to be able to ever plan for a pandemic, right? You're never going to be able to plan for a volcano or a tsunami or a hurricane. Yes, I lived on an island.
I say, you sound like someone who lived in Hawaii and Japan.
Right. So those things are always going to affect outcomes, but the more you do to manage internally, sell to the right people, say the right things, follow the right process, the more likely you are to have predictable revenue.
I love it. Now, Liz, how can people find you? Obviously, anyone, you can see it all over the screen. But Liz, how would you like people to see you, to find you?
Find me on LinkedIn is a great way. I'm the only Liz Heiman. Send me a note. Tell me where you met me. I would love to chat. If you want to actually have a strategy session and chat with me, I will do a free 30-minute strategy session, just go to www.regarding-sales.com and schedule an appointment and let's have a chat.
I am putting that in the link into the chat right now. And I'm going to take a look for everybody. We're going to move into Q&A. Again, I'm going to put this up so my team doesn't get mad at me. If you want to connect with me, this is all my information. LinkedIn's the best place to find me. You got my email there as well. Please don't spam me. Don't spam me your sales stuff. But you want to have a chat? If I can add value to you, I'd love to be able to be a part of that. And we do have a program right now at Fist Bump. If you want to learn about, what, as I said before, what we do is we help leaders be connected, be relevant, credible, and an influential voice in their industry, so that more people in the industry are saying, oh my gosh, I see you everywhere. I feel like I know you. And that creates more sales conversations for themselves and their team. If you want to learn a little bit about that, connect with me and I can chat with you a bit about that. But let's go into, I'm going to come back to Liz's slide and we're going to go look at some questions. Natalie Davidson, you are awesome. Will you please keep me on your list for the Big Dog series? This is high value for me. Thank you. Natalie, thank you so much for that feedback and encouragement. That makes my heart really, really happy because that's what we want to do is we really just want to give tremendous value to our Fist Bump network. And look, for everybody in sales, if you don't believe this, figure out how to believe it. The more you give, the more you get. And that is a philosophy that we are doing at Fist Bump. And we just know that the more we keep giving, the more value, promoting our big dog friends like Liz, helping them to help you. I just believe that it's going to keep benefiting my company as well. So really, it's kind of one of the most selfish things in the world to do. But thank you for that feedback. Let's see, Michael Cupp, Seth Davies, lots of my friends in here. Thank you so much. Cups took away the random acts of selling is his takeaway. Random acts of anything. There was a question up here I want to get to for you. Let's see. Kim Hubbs out of Vancouver, and he and I have had a chat. We met on LinkedIn. We had a call. I've always felt that a challenging yet realistic sales goal for my team was best. I want my team to come to me with their own number that they want to achieve. Your thoughts, Liz?
Yes. If your team doesn't believe they can achieve it, they're not going to achieve it. So there's two parts of it. There's really three parts. There's what do we as a company need to achieve using the resources that we have. The second is what is the person capable of actually doing? We often assume somebody just make it 10% more, just make it 10% more, just make it 10% more. Well, you want me to do 10% more with the same resources that you gave me when I did it 3 years ago with 30, when it was 30% less. We need to really think about what is realistic, what is the reality. And if I want somebody to achieve more, what changes do we need to make to allow them to achieve more? So one of my favorite things is rather than hiring another salesperson, why don't you hire a sales assistant? Right? Take away some of the work that isn't necessary for that person to be doing, but that has to be done. Think about how do you get that person to achieve more? How do you focus their energy on the things that will have the greatest return on investment? So it's not just about, do you think you could hit 10 million? Well, okay, what would it take for you to hit 10 million? What would you need in order to achieve that? Now you can have a conversation that's real. Great. Now let's create a strategy to achieve that. But just a number, 10% more, there's nothing strategic about 10% more. Nothing.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's good. Thank you, Liz. Go ahead.
Somebody asked about TAM, SAM, and SOM. And here's what I want to say about that. TAM, SAM, and SOM are about getting money. That's about funding. I want to prove how big the market is that I'm going to sell it. That's fine. You need to do that if you're going to get funding. Yeah. What do you really need to do if you want to sell more? Yeah, Brandon.
I say, just in case people are out there, they don't know what TAM, SAM, or SOM means. Will you explain that for everybody, please?
Oh, I always get the letters confused, but it's about what's the great, like if you sell pharmaceutical supplements, or if you sell supplements, what's the entire market of people who buy health things for their health? And then what's the market, or maybe just the market of people who buy supplements? Then what's the market of people who buy the kinds of supplements that I would like to sell? That's your TAM, that's your SAM. And then your SOM is what can I actually do right now? So if there are 10 million people that might buy my supplements, tomorrow I can't sell to 10 million people. So what can I sell in the near future or in the near term?
Yeah.
So, but when you're really thinking about creating your sales strategy, what you really want to focus on is who are the people most likely to buy from me? What categories of people? How do I describe those people? How do I figure out where those people are and how much they're likely to buy? So, and then how do I figure out if I've got this target of people a certain age with certain illness or something, which are the ones, so that's my target. Who are the people that are sort of in this category that I could sell to, or who are the companies? And then my ideal customer, which we talked about earlier, those are the people that are most likely to buy now with the least fuss and the least marketing and the least push. They're the ones that are like, this is where I am, this is what's going on in my life, and this is what I need right now. Start selling to them. You want to shorten your sales cycle, you want to sell more, sell to the people who want you most. Speak to the people, message to the people who need you most. Instead of trying to talk to all of the people that want to buy supplements in the entire world.
Yeah.
And that I think is what is important when we're talking about sales. What can we do right now?
Yeah, and that brings you back to, and I'm gonna go ahead and stop the share. And that brings you back to the value of your ideal customer profile and knowing them as deep and detailed as you possibly can, so that whether it's content, whether it's a conversation, whether it's going to a booth and what it looks like all of that is speaking very clearly to this audience. Reminds me the saying, the riches are in the niches. The more focused we can be, the more relevant we are to them.
And I want to take that a little bit further. So if we think about messaging, so let's talk about a booth. You talked about a trade booth. What do you do when you walk up to a trade booth at most conferences? You look at them and you say, what?
What do you do?
What a waste of time. Mm-hmm. What an absolute waste of time. I've spent $50,000 for people to walk up and go, what do you do? Mm-hmm. What I want them to say is, oh, can you do that for me? Right? So what does my messaging need to be in order for them to say, can you do that for me? The only time they're going to say that is if my messaging is about their problem.
Yeah. Yeah. For somebody out there, that was just $1 million sentence, what you just said. If they just rethink their booth structure, right? Their messaging and selfishly, we have a booth magnet program that's like the pre-messaging and pre-content that goes on around a show, a trade show. But I'm going to reiterate for everybody, because what Liz said is freaking brilliant. And if you didn't catch it, most people go to a booth and we build it for, what do you do? And Liz said, you want people to look at the booth and go, oh, can you do that for me? Oh my gosh, Liz, that's huge and so simple.
So simple. So simple. But the reason we don't do it and the reason we can't do it is we don't understand our buyers. So one of the things that I do with my customers, with my clients, is to walk through, if you have a complex sale, who are the people involved in that buying decision? And what is their relationship to the problem? And how do they define that problem? What do they say? I guarantee no, and if you've got CEOs today out in the room, you can agree with me or not, but I have never heard a CEO say, you know what I really want to do today? I want to go spend money on a CRM. That would make me so happy.
I'm gonna go buy a bunch of licenses for software that no one's.
Oh God, that's so much fun. I want to spend months and months trying to get this thing to work. No, what a CEO says is, I can't figure out what my team is doing. We can't track. I have no measures. I have no information. I need a way to get the information I need to run the business. Well, maybe you need a CRM. Yeah. Right? So when we start talking to our buyers, they don't care what we do. They don't care about our product. They don't care about our benefits. They don't care about any of that stuff. What they care about is I have a problem that I need to have solved or something I want to achieve. And I'm now looking for ways to do that. I'm walking around this trade show with a whole bunch of these little problems in my head looking for potential solutions. But I have to know how you talk about it. I only talk about return on investment with a CEO. If there's a bunch of engineers in the room, I don't talk about return on investment. I talk about capacity and does it fit and how long does it last, right? Because they do care about features and benefits. That's what they're trying to figure out. Does it fit into my formula?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love it, Liz. Well, I'm going to wrap us up. We still have a lot of people on, but I don't see any other new questions on here. I think maybe you and Bob can go, have a deep dive conversation on Hawaii and Sam and Sam and Tam and farming at some point. But Liz, thank you so much for being the first big dog. Well, we've had others. I just didn't come up. I wasn't smart enough to come up with the name Big Dog Series
Right.
until this one. So my apologies to Mark and a couple others who we did webinars, but I didn't call it the Big Dog Series, but it's now the Big Dog Series, and you were the
Now the
first one.
big dog series, and you have your first one with a light problem, but we'll work it out.
It's all good. Well, everybody, thank you so much. There was a question in there. Yes, we will make the recording available. We did force you guys to register, so we have your email, and you'll get an email, and I don't know, the next day or two with a link to the recording. And of course, you know how to get in touch with Liz, or you can get in touch with me on LinkedIn, and we'll get you anything that you need. So thank you, everybody, so much for joining us today. It's December, so Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year's, whatever you
Hanukkah.
celebrate. Happy Hanukkah. Thank you. Gosh, and that's normally my go-to second one. But yeah, I hope you have a wonderful holiday time with your family and enjoy the time to rest.
Yeah.
Enjoy that downtime. Take it from a CEO who burned out, 10 years of, oh my gosh, I got to go do everything in the first 10 years of my career and hit extreme burnout and took me about 6 months to get out of bed. Like, don't do that. It's not fun. It is not fun. And my wife didn't like it either. So
No,
take
I
care
bet.
of you. Enjoy some downtime with your family and invest well your time. So thank you, everybody. Liz, thank you so much.
Oh,
Well,
you're so welcome.
you want to wrap us up with anything, final words to everybody?
Just happy selling, everybody. Go sell and have fun and take care of the people around you.
That sounds great. All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.